my son stood up his mom like she did years ago. I had my son with my then girlfriend just after high school. We got married at just 18 and 20. Christian parents. From the moment he was born, I loved him. But my ex thought otherwise. She'd blame him for ruining her life, leading her to mentally and verbally mistreat my boy up till we divorced. It was a clean break, as she left with her new rich boyfriend saying if her future was ruined, her new rich boyfriend can help her live the life she wanted. My son is such an angel. He always thought it was his fault and tried to do his best to be the best son for me, leading him to be very easily influenced by others' criticisms and stuff. Since his classmates' moms treat their kids right, everyone's hero is their mother. Even after all the abuse she put him through, he still wanted to visit her. His normal bad parenting, making plans she couldn't attend to. I'd understand if it's once or twice, but all the times? Not even once? Not even a freaking weekend or even a few hours. He basically had no maternal figure in his life, and this made him have trust issues and became really quiet. But thank goodness for therapy, he got much better. The gym became a stress reliever, and now he's a strong, intelligent senior in school. He's the perfect child. It's only about 6 months ago he got texts from his mother asking to meet him. For a week straight, he was so happy, and reasonably happy to meet someone who had hurt him so bad at such a young age, but it was not my place to tell him who he should meet. The day he was supposed to meet her at a coffee shop to catch up, my son got a call from his mom asking where is he. Sorry, something came up at work, can't meet today, before hanging up. For 6 months, whenever they made plans, he was a no-show. I wasn't aware of any of this, but my ex called to tell me about my son's behavior, saying he's acting out of line and should be disciplined. I'm sorry, but when she was explaining, I just straight up started cracking up. I told her that he's doing what she did to him years ago, and I will not be disciplining him for something she indirectly taught him. I feel bad for her, but is my son really that wrong to no-show his mom? My son did want a relationship, but decided against when she accidentally let it slip that she wanted money. It was over a phone call, so I have no evidence that that's what she wants. But knowing her, it sounds exactly like what she do. I believe she married me not only because of her parents, but also the fact that my parents did own quite a big business in my home country that made them somewhat wealthy. She started getting quite irritable when I wanted to not take over the business. Their business is buying and selling stocks or whatever. My current career is a chemist. Another thing I saw was that my son was quite petty in this revenge. Of course, there's a lot of hatred and resentment towards his mom. Not for her abuse, but the fact that she contacted him for money. My son works as a freelancer in my parents' business, just some admin work. She knows that if she called me, I would have straight up said no. Now for the top comments. Nah, good on him. She has no right to demand that your son get disciplined when she clearly didn't care about him until now. She literally mentally and verbally mistreated him when he was younger, and now she expects him to just forget everything? Good on him for giving her a taste of her own medicine. Good for him. It might be worth sitting down and saying, as your dad who is supposed to teach you respect and kindness, that's mean. But as your dad who is supposed to teach you to stand up for yourself and solve problems creatively, I'm so damn proud of you. What you did may have not been right, but it sure as heck wasn't wrong. I mean, it's funny, but it's also still clear your son is holding on to a ton of anger and resentment against her. Please make sure he stays in therapy. The gym can't be his only outlet for stuff like this. It's just not enough for issues this significant. It's also still clear your son is holding on to a ton of anger and resentment against her. I wouldn't let this take control of my life, but no chance in hell I would ever forget or forgive this. I would spare only the apathy and rejection she has shown, no more no less. This kid owes nothing to their genetic donor. Next story. My niece was the reason my marriage fell apart, and now she's completely a narcissist like her mother anyhow. This is long, so let me apologize in advance, but I need to say the things I keep bottled up inside me somewhere anywhere. About 7 years ago, my ex-husband and I had a decent marriage. It wasn't perfect, but marriage rarely is. Our kids were well-behaved. We both worked, and we had our kids in activities outside of school to keep them healthy and active. We had one blimp, where intimacy had died off for about a year, but we had talked and took an adult-only vacation and sparked that back too. My sister had moved a few years prior, about 6 hours away from the family. She uprooted her kids because she needed a change after her divorce. The problem was, she basically began to act like a teenager, staying out all night partying or drinking, and made her oldest child care for the younger two, as well as her new friends' children too. Summer vacation approached that year, and my mom asked me to go pick up my nieces and nephew for a month-long visit. We arranged for the oldest to stay with me and the younger to stay with my mother so that the oldest would get a break. When I arrived to pick them up, my sister told me her oldest did not want to come, but she was forcing her to. For the first 2 weeks, my niece cried every day. I finally approached her and told her I was sorry she didn't want to be here, but she cried harder and told me she wasn't crying because she didn't want to be here. She was crying because she didn't want to go home. My husband and I spoke about her moving in with us at 18, but she told me if she returned home, she wouldn't live to see 18. He was very against taking her in. Not because he didn't love her, but because it was a financial burden to our family, and a fight with my family if we did. But I believed my niece's threats and I fought. First him, then my sister and my mom. We ended up keeping my niece through tons of fights. We got very little to no help financially or emotionally, but we did the best we could by her. But it was a crack, like the kind you get in your windshield and it just keeps getting bigger every time something small hits it. My niece got pregnant as a teen, just like her mother. The crack grew. My husband and I fought about money. The crack grew more. By the time my niece moved out at 17 and back in and out again, the windshield was beyond repair. My now ex and I recently divorced, and while my niece isn't the only reason, she's absolutely the reason the windshield got weakened enough to break. Now, she's 21 and she treats me as disposable. She only calls on me when she wants something from me and often ignores my calls and texts. She told me she thought I had a perfect family and that she regretted moving in with us because she was wrong. Never once thinking she was what changed the dynamic so much. To say that it hurts my feelings is an understatement. My ex and I are building a friendship again and I'm thankful for him. My birthday just passed and not one member of my family acknowledged it, outside of my kids. But my ex and his stepmom both did and I'm very grateful for them. It's hard when you hear blood is thicker than water over and over, only to realize blood family sometimes is unhealthy for you. But I'm learning. Edit, since I see this recurring in the comments, let me say that both me and my ex-husband did everything to make my niece feel welcome and safe. We had her in therapy. When she told me she was having sex, it took her to get her on a pill. We taught her to drive and took her to soccer practice and drama club and everything else she asked to join. I don't blame my niece fully. 1, she was a child. 2, I made my choices. I could have said no. My ex-husband did say he didn't want to take her in until she was 18, but he also helped me when I begged to do it. I believe I'm allowed to be frustrated at my niece for her parts. And no, I would absolutely never say any of this to her, because you just do not do that to kids. Thus, this rant post on Reddit is to get out some of my negative feelings. Trust me, I own my own faults, but that's a whole different post to make. Cut your niece off. Stop enabling her. She made her decisions. It's not your responsibility anymore at all. I would start by telling him that he was right. Thank you. I'm working on cutting out people part. My ex and I get along well now that divorce dust has settled, and I have apologized to him many times now for the decisions I have made and the things I've done. We may never be a couple again, but I believe we will always be friends, and that's pretty good too. Good for you and your ex, and for your kids for having mature parents. Like others have told you, both you and your ex need to free yourselves from the burden of helping your niece. Any responsibility you may have once had is gone now that she's an adult. You and your branch of the family don't need to deal with the poison of the other branch. On the flip side, if you had turned her niece away and niece did end up ending herself, your marriage would have been over as well, and you and your ex might not be friends. How are you gonna call them narcissistic when you legit made a whole situation about you? You forced your husband to take her in. Did you do any type of therapy with her? Or did you just take her in and go, damn, look at me, I'm such a good person? Therapy, sports, drama club, we taught her to drive and helped her every step of the way. We tried our best to treat her as our own, and that includes my ex-husband. While he didn't love the situation, he tried to be the best father figure to her he could be. You'd have to ask her if she felt resentment from him, because it's obvious that he didn't want to do this from the get-go. I also wouldn't be shocked if you spilled some of the rage you feel for her in this post into her daily life as well. In the end, you picked up a traumatized/abused child. It really shouldn't upset you that much that she ended the way that she has. Her early years weren't the best, and that stuff legit will affect your entire life. Especially to a point where you blame her for your marriage falling apart. Last story. My brother will never move out of my parents' house, and I seem to be the only one who sees why. I just have to vent this somewhere. I don't really have anyone to talk to about it who would understand, and I literally don't have time for therapy. I, 31 female, have a brother, 28 male, who lives in my parents' basement and will never leave. He hasn't had a steady job in years. He can't get a girl to date him, and of course he blames feminism for this. My mom literally cleans up after him. Like homeboy can't even be bothered to bring his dirty dishes to the kitchen. My mom goes to his room and gets them for him. She pays him to help her around the house. Both of my parents make endless excuses for him. And I really don't know why, because all he does is whine and complain and generally acts like a jerk to them. My parents claim that they raised my brother and I exactly the same. They claim to have been blindsided by my brother's basement-dwelling fate, but I call this exact scenario over 20 years ago. Growing up, my brother would get rewarded for doing the most simple tasks. My mother was never short of praise for anything my brother did. I remember he would get allowance money every weekend for doing hardly any chores. I, on the other hand, could hardly have a weekend to myself, plus without my mother scolding me for not doing something, not doing it well enough, not doing it long enough, etc. If it wasn't house chores, it was extracurricular activities, which I was doing to the point of exhaustion. No matter how much I did, it seemed like it just wasn't enough. The thing is, I really wasn't a bad kid in general. I never had any disciplinary issues in school, but as soon as I came home, you would have thought I was Satan himself from the number of restrictions put on me. My mom was constantly going through my things and she never did this with my brother. So on top of never having time for myself to just goof off and be a kid, I never had privacy. I started hiding my diary in a hole in the dry wall of my closet because my mom openly admitted to reading it. I became highly introverted and guarded, and I barely made any friends in school. My brother, it seemed, was given the free rein to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted with no consequence. In hindsight, I think my parents were being sexist in how they raised us, but at the same time, I just thought my parents, especially my mom since she was our primary caregiver, were plain dumb to be always giving so much praise to my brother when he did so little to earn any of it. I really started to resent both my parents and my brother in middle school, and I was pretty open about my frustrations. Of course, they blamed hormones and teen angst, but at 31, those feelings haven't gone away. I've just gotten better at disguising them for the sake of protecting my parents' feelings. I started devising a plan to move out pretty early, even trying to run away a few times. There was a point where my parents were deflating my bike tires every weekend and hiding the pump. I managed to get out pretty much the minute I turned 18 and moved into my own apartment several states away. Because of the way I was raised, I can't stand having anyone control me or my life, and I'm very sensitive about who is in my space and for how long. In addition to living alone, most of my adult life, I've always been self-employed since moving out of my parents' house, so I had to hustle really hard to maintain this lifestyle. And yeah, that meant doing some morally questionable activities, but I don't regret it because I never had to move back in with my parents, and I've always been in control of myself. The only time I wasn't was when I was married to my abusive ex, and what really sealed the deal in leaving that guy was how much he reminded me of living with my parents. Nowadays, I'm working as a full-time freelance artist, and I actually get really high-end gigs and make pretty decent money. My parents have a bizarre relationship with my success. They seem to want to take credit for it in some ways, which I guess they should because it was how much I hated being around them and hated having someone telling me what to do that motivated me to choose this career path and get good at it. On the other hand though, they can't talk about any of my accomplishments with the rest of my family because it makes my brother wildly jealous. My brother, who I should mention does have time for therapy and supposedly goes, blames his inability to get out of the house on me. In my resentment of him while we were growing up, he says I traumatized him. My parents tell me that it's his trauma that I caused that has him unable to function in the world and move out of the house. And since I'm apparently the source of this trauma, anytime I'm at my parents' house, my brother makes a point to avoid me. The last time I was there, while I was hanging out with my mom, her phone was going off every second with a text from my brother complaining that I was there visiting. Everything I did while visiting my parents had to be carefully choreographed around my brother, and he still wouldn't stop complaining. I'm basically a second-class citizen in my parents' house every time I visit, because his needs must always come first. At this point, I don't even know what to tell my parents. It's obvious to everyone around them that they're enabling my brother to be a perpetual child, but my mom has a never-ending list of excuses for why she can't kick him out. And how he's just about to get into the field he's always wanted to be in. He just needs a little more time to get on his feet, blah blah blah. And of course, it's all my fault because I was the difficult child, and he wasn't. I feel like I've been sabotaged out of ever really having a loving and supportive family because they're too busy cuddling my brother. Anyways, thanks for reading my rant. I feel better now. Is your name Shannon, perchance? I have a pair of cousins just like you. Sister is incredibly hardworking. Graduated college early, got a master's, bought her own place at 31, has always had a minimum of 2 jobs. Her younger brother is 36, dropped out of school, never had a job or a girlfriend, and lives in his parents' cottage smoking weed all day. Yet, for some reason, every time you talk to them, it's Rob this and Rob that, and Rob starting his surfboard making business. He isn't. They've coddled him into being a bum and acts like everyone doesn't know it. It's bizarre, and just once I'd like to interrupt one of their monologues about all the great stuff their son is up to and tell them he's a freaking burnout bum, and anyone with eyes could see it. No, it isn't, but I feel your pain, Shannon. I actually think your parents did you a favor by being strict unknowingly. The way they coddled your brother has made him not be able to function in society. Your parents will and are growing old, and it will reach a time when they themselves will need someone to take care of them. Do you think your brother will? Am I the a-hole for reminding my ex-stepdaughter that I wasn't her father and not committing to an earlier promise? When my ex-stepdaughter was 14, she said she wanted to study abroad in the UK, but it would be too expensive, so I told her that I'd start saving for that then so that we could actually send her there. I opened a savings account the next day for that, and it was supposed to cover tuition, housing, and some allowance. The next year, her mother and I divorced. I still tried to maintain a relationship with her, but that ended quite sour when she said I wasn't her father, and I should stop being involved as if I was. I said alright, and that the ball would be in her court then and we never saw each other again. That was until 2 days ago. She, 19, came knocking on my door. I invited her in. We sat down and she asked me if I remembered that promise I'd made her when she was younger. I asked which one, and she said the college fund one. I said I did remember, and she said she wanted some of that money right now to cover expenses and that she'd use the rest to actually study abroad next year. In case you forgot, this was the first time we'd spoken for 4 years. So I told her that since we lost contact, I repurposed that money a long time ago, so there was unfortunately nothing there to give her. She was rather unhappy about that, and said something around the lines of, "Figured, you were always full of it. So much for I'll always be there, Dad." A call back to when we told her about the divorce and I said I would still be in her life and she could still call me Dad. This obviously upset me, so I responded with the fact that she stonewalled me after the divorce and reminded her that I wasn't her father like she'd said, so she had no right to complain. She left afterwards and I got a call yesterday from her mother cussing out for ain't being it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's pretty ridiculous of her to expect that the money would still be waiting for her after pretending you didn't exist for 4 years. She made it very clear that she didn't want a relationship after the divorce, and yet she still expects to reap the benefits you promised when you were close. And she isn't even going abroad. She just wants his money and will maybe go next year. Not even then if the grapevine says she's pregnant. Money is going to raise the baby. I would put money on her mother sending her. Not the a-hole. The divorce closed the bank of Dad, especially after she pushed you out of her life. You, as your stepfather, I'll save for your tuition. Divorce happens. She, you're not my father. Begone. Adios. You, okay, call if you change your mind. Hint, she did not. 4 years later, she, where is my money? The entitlement is really, really strong with her. Not the a-hole. She's just being opportunistic. She knew how to find you, right? She could have sent a message to you anytime in the past 4 years but waited until she wanted some cash. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling off my wife because she promised my time for this coming weekend? My wife, 35 female, and I, 36 male, have a 5-year-old son. We both work full-time, but my wife sometimes needs to work on weekends, maybe 2 to 3 weekends a month. I enjoy the time alone with my son when she is at work on weekends, as I think it really gives us time to bond, just the two of us. But my wife has a habit of arranging playdates and other activities for the days that she works on weekends. I find it incredibly disrespectful to me, and I have told her many times that I don't like her doing it. This coming weekend, she has to work on Saturday. Last night, she told me that our son asked if he could have some friends from his kindergarten class over this weekend. She agreed, and they invited a few friends over to play on Saturday. When she told me, I got mad at her. I told her it was BS that she promised my time like that when she isn't going to be here. I told her it's not right that she offered me to supervise multiple kids like that without talking to me first. She asked if I had anything planned, and I told her that no, I did not have anything planned, but that's not the point. She said that we shouldn't be discouraging our son from wanting to be social and we should be happy as making friends. When she realized how upset I was, she offered to cancel with the other parents or try to reschedule. But she said that our son was really looking forward to having friends over and she didn't want to disappoint him. I felt like that was a low blow because then it makes me the bad guy if I tell her to cancel. So I told her that we can go ahead with the play dates, but that I am taking all day Sunday for myself. I told her that I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but that she's going to be fully responsible for our son that day. I told her that I don't care if all I'm going to do is sit and watch football all day, but that she gets to be the one to watch our son. She got mad at me because that's her only day off all week and she just wants to relax too. I told her that's not my fault, and that if she wants to promise my time on weekends, that I should at least get to decide when I want time for myself. She told me I'm being petty, and that my son and his friends will be fine playing by themselves for the most part. She said it will only be for a few hours, and she already told the other parents that we aren't going to be feeding them dinner or anything like that. So all I have to do is make sure no one gets hurt. I told her that next time she wants to arrange a playdate, that she can schedule it for when she's able to at least help or talk to me first. I reminded her that this isn't the first time she's done something like this, and that I'm tired of her scheduling my time for me like I'm her employee. She thinks I'm blowing this out of proportion, and since I don't have anything planned, it's not that hard to just sit around the house and watch kids play for a few hours. Not day whole. How would she feel if you volunteered her time before even asking her about it? I think the best way to handle this, if she's unwilling to budge on at least talking to you first, is to give her a taste of her own medicine. You're equal partners, and while care for your child is implied and joint, that doesn't extend to dropping other kids on one another. It's rude as heck, and not respectful of each other's time. You're justified in your irritation. At least get her to a point where she discusses it with you first. He did. He volunteered her to watch her own son that Sunday so he can get some rest too. And she got angry. He's not the a-hole. She can dish out his time, but he can't do it to her. They don't seem to be communicating well, but she needs to respect his time as well. That was a more petty and reactive way to manage it. It doesn't really establish the point for her. These situations tend to work out better if you can recreate the full conditions almost entirely. Let her get mad about it, and then draw her attention to the immediate parallel. Doing this while she's already feeling defensive over the situation will just make her more defensive and doesn't really establish the point in a constructive manner. Psychology is our friend. Not day whole. My husband and I did not volunteer each other for things. I don't even make myself an appointment that will leave him on the spot on an evening or weekend without consulting him first, and he does the same for me. Yes, I'd like to set up a playdate for X time. Let me check with my husband first to make sure we have a clear schedule, and then doing that is not that hard. Right. Who volunteers someone for something, not knowing if they even have plans, or don't have plans? It's not your life, it's theirs. My wife did this to me exactly once in our relationship where she didn't consult me beforehand. What she didn't know was that I had a roof install scheduled for work. I had to delay and ended up losing the contract just asking for it. Lost about $3,000 because of the situation. Not day whole. I actually think you should have let her cancel the playdate. She's doing this because she gets all the credit and none of the work. All the parents are thanking her and telling her how thoughtful she is. She gets to feel like a good mom while you do the work. Not cool. This will only stop when you actually start making her cancel these plans. Until she has to feel the embarrassment of going back on her promise, she's never going to stop. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend she should work less if she wants more time with her husband? About 7 months ago, my friend Tori, 34 female, began to vent to us about some of her marital problems. Namely that her husband, Jack, 35 male, doesn't have time for her. At first, we let her vent and just listened to her and gave her support. I know that Jack is a stay-at-home dad that works part-time from home, and Tori's pretty big into her career. At the time, I didn't question how things were when she got home because I just wanted to listen to her. Since then, she's had the same complaints every time we see her, and some of our friends started to offer her advice. Like tell Jack how he was hurting her feelings, and tell him what she needed from him. It sounded like good advice. This year, our kids are in the same kindergarten class, so Jack, myself, and another friend have been taking turns carpooling the kids. Whenever I drop their kid off and take them inside, I would always see Jack finishing up cleaning, laundry, cooking, and other household chores. Tori also now has 2 nights a week where she either comes to one of our houses after work, or she goes out with her coworkers after work. Yet when we see her, she still has the same complaint about Jack not having time for her. This last time I saw Tori, some of our friends had started to talk down about him to her about the whole situation. I asked Tori if Jack is still doing most of the childcare and housework while working from home, and she said yes. I asked her if she gets paid overtime for working so many hours that they need the money, and she said no. She's on salary, but she wants to get to the next level. I told her it sounds like she had been misrepresenting the situation. And it doesn't sound like Jack doesn't have time for her, but she may not be making time for him. And if she wants time with him, she should cut back on her hours so she's home at a reasonable time. And maybe not go socialize 2 nights a week while he's at home. Tori started to cry and tell me I was shaming her for having her career, and our friend agreed. I said it wasn't like that at all and that there was nothing wrong with her having a career. But if all the other advice hadn't been working after so many months, maybe she needed to look at how she was also contributing to the problem. Now they're both upset and barely talking to me. Was I so wrong to tell her that? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She's doing the same thing to her husband what men used to do to their wives. It wasn't okay when they did it to us, and it's not okay to do it to them. You can't prioritize your work and social life, then complain that your spouse who is filling in all of the blanks doesn't have time to prioritize you. Running a household is a lot of work. And if a working woman has a stay-at-home husband who is doing that work, he deserves the same respect that we all would expect a working husband to give to a stay-at-home wife. This right here. My husband and I are working parents with a new baby, and I'm back from maternity leave and attempting to recoup my lost progress and try to make a play to manage a new restructured department. It means lots of tired days at work, so he has been pitching in more at home and with baby. But we have our 2 nights a week of movie date nights after the baby is asleep to prioritize our marriage, and we schedule having our respective me and social time so we don't burn out. It doesn't sound EOP's Fred is prioritizing anything but herself. You aren't shaming her for having a career. That's a straw man. The situation seems to be exactly how you're seeing it. Not the a-hole. It doesn't sound like Tori's even trying to make time for her husband. Her husband sounds like he's got a full plate and is supporting her advancing her career. I feel like she's falling into this trap of having it all. The kids, the career, the relationship. Having it all is a myth. There are only so many hours of the day, so many days in a year. If she wants to advance her career, that's fine, but it will come at the cost of time with her family. She has to accept that. Not the a-hole. Your question was completely legitimate, and frankly, overdue considering that she complains about the same issue over and over again without trying to do anything to change the situation. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my house for being crazy? I'm 22 female. I'm a stay-at-home mom/student to a 3-month-old boy. My husband is a line cook, so he's not earning the world of money right now. I don't work because childcare in my area would cost more than what I would earn in a lot of jobs available to me. My sister Jane works part-time, but she only pays the internet bill. She's been living with us for 6-ish months now since my parents are at their wits' end with her mental illness. Jane has orthorexia, OCD, bipolar, and severe anxiety. She's got this idea in her head recently that the brand of formula I feed my son is going to harm him. She keeps trying to get me to change the brand he's on. I can't, because the brand I use is the cheapest, which is all we can currently afford, and the baby tolerates this brand amazingly well. My sister thinks I should be breastfeeding the baby, but agrees that the ship has sailed. She still loses her mind every time I go to make a bottle. She's in a mild manic episode right now, which are usually manageable and tolerable, but this one takes the cake. In the 15 freaking minutes it took me to shower while baby was napping, she managed to get rid of most food she thinks is harmful. As in opened the containers and dumped them on the floor. A lot of that was baby formula. She said if I continued to feed it to my son, he would die. And if he died, she'd be responsible since she did nothing. I lost it and ripped her a new one. I told her she's absolutely insane and that she belongs in a secure home or something where she can't harm other people, etc, etc, etc. I told her she's super crazy and to get the heck out of my house before I destroy everything she owns to see how she likes it. My parents dropped over the half-used spare formula from their house, but they think I'm being harsh on my sister and that even I've gone a bit too far here. My husband agrees, but also agrees with me that our son needs to eat and my sister needs help. He thinks I went too far insulting her mental health. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister is your parents' responsibility. Your son is yours. You do not owe anything to your sister, and she can move back to your parents and she can pay rent or something with that money she is making at her part-time job. A young baby is hard to take care of, and you don't have to give your sister the care your parents should be doing. Your parents are the a-hole and should never comment on you having to deal with your sister. What the heck is wrong with them? If I were you, I would not kick your sister out before having a plan where she could stay due to her mental health. But your parents should take their responsibility as her parents and find her help. Your focus should be on the baby, your husband, and yourself. Parents kicked her out first, then get mad when someone else can't tolerate her behavior? And in the US, there is a formula shortage, and doing this would literally cause severe harm. What if you can't replace their formula? That is severely mentally ill territory to risk a baby's food source. It's not dramatic to lose your patience/leniency when she does something so deplorable due to her own issues. Ask your husband when and how you're supposed to get new formula. Then ask him if you overreacted. Opie, don't let her back into your home. This is too much for your own family unit. Your parents only think you're being too harsh with your sister because they don't want her moving in with them. Especially with the formula shortage over the last 2 years, I would go into a rampage if anyone destroyed my baby's source of food that was scarce and expensive. I truly hope your sister can get the help she needs, but you're not the one who should be obligated to help considering you gave birth a few months ago. Your parents are a-holes for insisting you care for her while you were juggling an infant, school, and home. Not the a-hole. This isn't just a manic episode. That's psychosis. That's a full-blown delusion. Not the a-hole, your infant isn't safe around her. What happens when sister decides that Opie is killing the baby and that she needs to take him somewhere safe away from Opie? Not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for helping my ex's son financially but refusing to help my ex? I, 45 male, and my ex, Emmy, 46 female, got together 3 years ago and broke up last year. My son Leo is 17 and Emmy's son Nate is 16. Emmy and her son moved in my house in June 2021. Her and I were supposed to have split custody, 1 week each. At the end of September, Nate told us that his father wasn't always here, that he was often alone, and asked us if he could stay at my house. Me and Emmy said yes. I realized quickly that Emmy wasn't taking care of Nate when it wasn't her week. For her, it wasn't her responsibility. This was one of the main reasons for the breakup. When Nate was here, I was the one taking care of him. Emmy and I broke up in February 2022 and she left my house in April. I was worried about Nate, so I proposed to Nate's father to help him take care of him. Long story short, he said yes. And now during Nate's father's week, I have him and Leo at my house. Nate still has his room and everything is the same as before. Me and Leo's mom have more money than my ex, so I give the same amount of money to Leo and Nate when they go out so he won't feel left out. And I buy things for him when needed. Emmy never said anything about this arrangement. The summer, like the ones before, Leo and Nate went to spend a few weeks at my parents'. We also took Nate with us when we went abroad, and I paid for everything. In September, everything resumed the same. I have Leo and Nate together during 1 week, and I take care of everything. My ex-wife, Leo's mom, is also helping during her time. He has sleepover at her place and she and her husband often sees games. Now the issue is, last week, Leo told me that Nate's sport gear was too deteriorated for him to use. I asked Nate, and he told me that he was too ashamed to tell me, and he was trying to save money to replace it. So this weekend, we went to buy everything he needed. I admit that I felt bad for not realizing it sooner, so I went a little overboard, and I bought him a more expensive equipment. I want to add it's not unusual for me to buy things for Nate. On Monday, Emmy called me to complain about the new year and told me that she needed money too. And she felt it was unfair of me to give/buy stuff for her son and not helping her when I had the money. She has a job, but she was complaining about not being able to have new/expensive stuff. Yesterday, I had dinner with friends and told them everything. Two of them told me that they thought it was a little selfish of me to not help someone in need when I had more than enough money to do so. I admit that I'm well off financially, but I worked very hard to be where I am today, and I do not want her to benefit from that. They also raised the fact that my ex-wife and me were planning ahead to help Nate through college, that it was a big commitment, and it was horrible of me to choose who to help from my past. Is it really awful of me to refuse to help her when I have the money? I feel that I don't owe her anything. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. You do not owe anyone anything. Emmy's an adult and should be focused on providing for her son and taking care of herself. I think it is amazing what you are doing to help Nate, and that really shows what a wonderful person you are. To me, it sounds like Emmy's jealous and wants to live a more luxurious lifestyle on your dime. 100% this. What about an entitled mother? Yes, she wouldn't take care of her son when it wasn't her week, even though he lived with her full time. Now she risks her son's situation with Opie because she's jealous he has new stuff and she doesn't. She's simply a bad mother, and Opie should ignore her concerns. Not today, Hall. Why should you help her buy expensive things when you're already helping her by supporting her son? The idea is preposterous. You're already helping her by supporting her son. The fact that everyone telling Opie to give her money is ignoring this is insane to me. Also, Nate is a child. And this adult woman is like, be my daddy too? Opie's friends also ignore that he and Emmy were only together for 2 years. Of course, not the a-hole for choosing who to help from his past. I suspect the friends are just trying to hedge their bets to request money from him in the future too. And if those friends are seriously arguing that they pay for their ex-partners to have necessary items, let alone extras, they're full of it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my kid's sister call me dad? I have split custody for my two sons Diego, 12, and Sasha, 10, with my ex Josie. About a year after we split up, Josie got pregnant with Eva from a one-night stand. That guy never stepped up. He's pretty broke, so doesn't pay child support and would just stop by every now and then when Eva was young, but hasn't been seen since she was 4 or 5. I'm pretty good friends with Josie and will invite her and all 3 kids over sometimes when I have cookouts and stuff like that. Through the years, I've watched Eva for Josie as a favor here and there. They go to the same school, so sometimes I'll pick all 3 of them up and drop them off at Josie's on her weeks when she's busy but I have some time. I don't play a fatherly role though and don't really want to. But the other day when I picked them up from school, Josie asked me if I want to stay for dinner. We had a nice meal and hung around a while. Then when I go to leave, Diego and Sasha hug me goodbye and say, "Bye, Dad." Eva also gave me a hug and called me that as well. I figured it was a mix-up and go, "What was that, Eva?" She goes, "Oh, sorry. Mean to ask if I could call you that now." I told her I'd rather her call me by my name. I'm not comfortable with that, and I don't want that responsibility on me. She seemed sad, and I thought that was that. But since then, Josie told me I'm being a real jerk. Saying it's not like she's asking for child support for her, but I should still let her call me that and be flattered. I don't really like it though, and I'm afraid of future expectations if she gets used to it. Am I the a-hole for that? I want to be clear that the only part I said was, I'd rather you just call me by my name. The "I'm not comfortable with that, I don't want that responsibility on me" was me explaining myself here. I didn't say that out loud to her. I don't personally want to be uncle or some nickname. I feel most comfortable going by my name. I have siblings with kids who call me Tio, and I like that just being their thing. That's not your child. You're doing enough to include her with your kids periodically. Letting her call you dad sets her up for heartache down the road. It was good to set that boundary now. Josie also needs to talk to her. Get her some therapy to deal with an absent father. You are in no way responsible for filling that void. Not the a-hole. Yeah, it's a boundary I don't think I'd want to relent. I pride myself on how hard I work for my kids. Been working on college funds for both of them to be the first ones in our family to go to a university. And I feel like if I set that dad expectation, I'll have to share with Eva. And I know it may sound greedy, but I want all my hard work to go towards my kids. Eva's a nice kid, but it just isn't like that for me. Exactly. You can't expect your ex to pick up the slack because she chose a loser the next time around. You're doing fine.
This issue lies with Josie, not the a-hole. You're setting a boundary now so she doesn't even get more hurt. Also, Josie's at fault here. Her daughter's lonely. It's gotta be tough seeing your siblings with their dad while your biological father didn't stick around. This does affect kids. They feel unwanted. However, it's not your place to fill that void. Sometimes you can get to that point and love a child like they are your own. However, it doesn't always happen. You know what you're capable of. Lesson for adults? Your decisions affect your kids. This poor little girl is now suffering, but it's not your place to fix it. Not the a-hole. I feel sorry for Eva, but this isn't your responsibility and it's good you're drawing a line in the sand. Josie probably doesn't want to have a difficult conversation with her daughter. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my son's college tuition? I, 39 male, had a one-night stand in college and a girl who we'll call Jade got pregnant. I agreed to pay child support, but that was all. This arrangement has worked for 18 years. I never liked the idea of having kids anyway, so I don't really mind that my son, Marty, 18 male, and I have no contact. Jade never got a boyfriend or anything after she had Marty, so she's been doing a pretty good job all by herself. We're still friends to this day, and I've only spoken to Marty a few times. Marty, having recently graduated high school, wants to get into college. His tuition is expensive though, and as a single parent, Jade can't afford it and won't fund his tuition because of that. Marty got my number from Jade and asked if I would help pay for his tuition. He made a point saying that I have a well-paying job. He was my only son and I'd never been there for him as a dad, so I should at least pay his tuition. I refused, because first off, I paid Jade child support and extra money on the side for his entire life. And second, I never wanted kids to begin with. Child support was the condition I took to not have to directly care for one. He said that it was selfish of me to pretend like I don't have an obligation to him. And I told him I did have an obligation, which was to pay for him until he was an adult. He protested, saying that I never gave him anything, which just isn't true. I made sure Jade had the money to care for him and gave him gifts through Jade on occasion. Jade and I have been content with this arrangement for years, and she does a great job being a parent. I funded a whole lot of my son's life. I basically paid for everything Jade couldn't, like extracurriculars and sometimes even bills and groceries if she was in a bad spot. Jade agrees that Marty is being unreasonable in this demand, and she's thankful that I was there to support them both. She told Marty he had other options and it would hurt my finances too. His tuition is tens of thousands of dollars. I get paid more than average, but not enough to afford that. He's angry at Jade for taking my side, saying that I'm an unsupportive bum, and that I've done nothing for him in the long run. But that's just not true. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole for not paying tuition. It sounds like you have fulfilled the obligation set by you and Jade. But don't pretend that you don't deserve to be called an unsupportive bum by your son. It absolutely sounds like the truth given what you've written. You gave Jade a monetary support, not your kid. Yes, it was used for your son's needs, but since kids aren't supposed to be involved in the money issue between parents, you're going to have to tell me what you've done for your son that he could consider direct support from you. Seems like you did the absolute bare minimum, but nothing more. I'm not sure you deserve the credit you want for the role you played. He did more than 99% of parents who give up children for adoption and nobody gives them grief. He isn't looking to be called Dad of the Year, but he did more than the bare minimum without messing with the kids' emotions and flip-flopping their relationship his entire life. Not the a-hole. He stated that he did not want kids. She chose to keep the pregnancy. He fulfilled his legal obligations towards Marty while he was growing up. He is not the a-hole. I'm sure this won't be a favorable comment, but paying and staying at a distance is much better than randomly appearing and disappearing from Marty's life. My boyfriend's sperm donor basically did something similar, although he signed his parental rights away to my boyfriend's dad so he could adopt him. He stayed a heck out of his life and allowed my boyfriend's parents to raise him, which they did great in my opinion. It's so much better than having a parent that obviously wants nothing to do with you. If Opie were a woman, he would probably have interrupted the pregnancy or put the baby up for adoption because he didn't want to have children. But that's not a choice he can make, so he paid for support until his son entered adulthood. Does it suck for the son to know that the father didn't want him? Yep. But the father didn't want to be a father either. The son is not asking his father to be part of his life, but to help with more money. If Opie can and want to pay, excellent. But if not, I don't think Opie has to. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister after her father kicked her out? For context, my sister 23 female and I 20 female share the same mother, who had passed away long ago, and we have different fathers. We have always been very close and we would talk at least 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes more. I moved away from my family and I now live with my boyfriend one state over. I pay bills and I work 35 to 40 hours a week. My sister has 3 young children. I have no children, so it's just my boyfriend and I. But she too earns her own money. Our relationship has become very distant, but I notice her never responding to my messages or anything. Not even to tell me she's busy or can't talk. She reads my messages but never responds to me, which is very hurtful since we have always been very close. I know everybody has their own lives and she's a busy person, but she only ever does talk to me when she needs money. She asks me at least once per week for money. It's always a different reason for it as well. Depending on her reasoning, which I sometimes don't know is even true, I do send her money. I have gotten my money back 1 time. She always swears to pay me back. Last week, she paid me my $30 back she needed, then 2 days later asked me for $20 more, to which I responded I did not have it. I work hard for my money, and I also don't have a very high-paying job. At 7 in the morning, she called me, to which I could not answer because my boyfriend is asleep and I'm respectful, so I sent her a message instead. She said her father kicked her out, and I asked her why and what happened, and she stated that he is an a-hole and asked me to give her money for a motel or something. I don't even get paid until later today, but I do have some money in savings that is meant strictly for bills. She swears to pay me back later, but I don't really trust that I will get that money back. So I told her I don't have the money and of course she disappeared once again. I always try to help my family members as much as I can, but I feel as if she is taking advantage of my kindness regardless of being my sister. So am I the a-hole for not helping my sister after she got kicked out? Not the a-hole. Your sister is using you. This, not the a-hole. There's a funny little phenomenon I've noticed, and is that "but we're family" is used to try and explain away all kinds of crazy BS behavior. You're not automatically entitled to give or receive anyone's money simply because you're related. Opie, you've already figured out that your sister is a mooch, and any cash you give her will likely never be seen again. You've helped her financially repeatedly. It now sounds like a perfectly reasonable time to stop. If you want to give her money, and it's clearly a gift, not a loan, that's your choice. But you don't have to if you don't have the extra funds or flat out just don't want to. She needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. And there are a million ways for you to support her without giving her a million of your hard-earned dollars. You also wouldn't be out of line to just go no contact and cut her off completely. Just out of curiosity, is there any chance sister has a problem with drugs/alcohol? Not the a-hole. Some key points. 1. She has 3 young children at 23. Who is taking care of them? I usually understand when people want to be parents, but you can't be a responsible parent without financial stability, among other things. I'm concerned about the children's well-being at this point. 2. Dad probably kicked her out because she is constantly asking him for money or not trying to leave. He probably doesn't want to take care of young kids. 3. Your sister is using you. Since you don't have kids, she probably thinks she can always get money from you. Whatever the reason the dad kicked her out, she needs to work on that. That issue is between them. If she's like one of our cousins, sister is probably pulling the vanishing act on kids. Not taking care of them when her dad needs her to, not responding to calls, etc. Our cousin has tried to get custody of the grandkids, but she won't sign the papers. Not the a-hole. Just an observation based on what you shared, it sounds like she may have some addiction issues. I was thinking the same thing, and I'm very worried, so I'm going to plan a date to go up there and figure out the reality of the situation. Just make sure you mentally protect yourself. Trying to talk to an addict about their behavior, even respectfully, rarely ends peacefully. Am I the a-hole for ruining Father's Day by telling my cousin the truth about why our fun uncle is not involved in her life? Currently, my Uncle John and Aunt Gia are married. But before that happened, Gia had been married to my Uncle Grant for 5 years. And Gia had been cheating on him with John. Uncle Grant was serving in the military for a lot of this time, so we didn't know until he returned home after an 8-month deployment to discover that Gia was already 3 months pregnant and she confessed everything. My grandparents sided with Uncle Grant at first, but after they learned that John was going to marry Gia for the baby, my cousin Zoe, they told Uncle Grant to think of what's best for the baby and forget John and Gia's cheating. Uncle Grant doesn't talk to them anymore, but kept in contact with my dad and our family. Uncle Grant also doesn't have a relationship with Zoe or her younger siblings, John Jr. and Emmy. He explained to me when I asked him as a teenager that he feels keeping his distance is the kindest thing, because he does feel resentment. And he knows it wouldn't be fair to Zoe to bring that kind of energy around her, which I understand. Since yesterday was Father's Day, me and my immediate family hung out with Uncle Grant in the morning and went to my grandparents' house in the evening for dinner. Zoe was at my grandparents' house with her parents and siblings, and she complimented my necklace and asked how I got it. I kept my response vague by saying, "Oh yeah, I got it as a birthday gift." And Zoe responded, "It was from Uncle Grant, isn't it?" Side note, Uncle Grant is the only one in our family who really has money, so I realize now how that would be obvious. I couldn't avoid it anymore without lying since Zoe asked directly, so I told her yes. Zoe got angry, saying that she knows from her parents that me and my brother constantly do fun stuff and get nice things from Uncle Grant, and she demanded to know why she and her siblings have never gotten that same treatment from him. Zoe then made a nasty accusation as to why Uncle Grant only treats me and my brother the way he does. At that point, I pulled Zoe into a private room and offered to tell her the truth, but warned her that her parents did some bad things, and knowing would probably change the way she looks at them. Zoe still insisted on knowing, so I told her what happened in as unbiased a way as possible. Obviously, Zoe was shocked and upset. She ended up getting into an argument with her parents and they went home early. Several different family members called me after, and apparently it's a crap show at John and Gia's house. Zoe wants to stay with our grandparents and is giving her own parents the cold shoulder. John Jr. is suspicious and asking questions, and Emmy is upset/confused because Zoe and her parents were all pretty close before. Only my parents, brother, and Uncle Grant have my back. All the other adults in the family said I ruined Father's Day and should have left the past in the past. But Zoe will be 18 in August and demanded the truth, and I felt she has a right to know. Am I the a-hole? Added for clarification, Uncle Grant, John, and my dad are all biological brothers. Gia has no biological relation to me. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. She asked a question. You warned her she might not like the answer, and she still insisted. All you did was tell the truth. At 17, she deserves to know the truth. John and Gia are just facing the consequences of their cheating, and the family members giving you crap about this are probably the ones who insisted on hiding Gia's cheating. Edited to add, holy smokes, I just saw the edit that John is the biological brother of Grant. So Gia cheated on Grant with his brother. This just got so much worse. This just reaffirms my stance that you are super not the a-hole. But John and Gia? Screw them. They're huge a-holes. I can totally understand Grant keeping his distance because John just carpet bombed that relationship with his brother. My God, his own brother? Definitely not the a-hole, OP. Not at all. Good luck dealing with this. Not a-hole. Zoe then made a nasty accusation as to why Uncle Grant only treats me and my brother the way he does. This is something that had to be stopped before rumors started flying around and Grant's character was assassinated. Anyone who can make references to grooming and exploitation of children out of pure rank jealousy can be told, hey, you're an affair baby, and our uncle doesn't like you nor wants to be around you because of your mother and father's betrayal of him. It's not like Zoe's some innocent 8-year-old. She has awareness of dark family stuff. Her dark family stuff isn't even as dark as what she was accusing Uncle Grant of. If she is happy to spout one as an untruth, she can cope with the other as hard facts. People have had lives ruined for that kind of stuff. Poor Uncle Grant is just trying to enjoy the family he has left. It wasn't that kind of accusation. Zoe accused Uncle Grant of being closer to me and my brother because we have lighter skin than Zoe and her siblings, which, as I said, is still a nasty and completely untrue accusation. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to talk to my dad even though he got mental help, and then making him cry for telling the truth on his birthday? My dad used to be abusive. It got so bad that my mom and him lost custody of us. My grandparents adopted all 5 of us, and my mom left my dad after getting an ultimatum from my grandparents, and life just kind of went on. Fast forward to today, 13 years later. I'm 25 and I'm disappointed to say that my grandparents died and my mom went back to my dad. All of my siblings also reconnected with him and say he changed completely, although most are not close to him. From what I heard, after losing his family, he finally got mental help and was diagnosed with severe PTSD as an Army vet and bipolar disorder. He spent the better part of a decade getting professional help and looks like it worked. Now my brother and mom are guilt-tripping me into talking to him. They constantly tell me how he was mentally unwell and to give him a second chance since he misses me and wants to make things right. But I really don't want to. I'm glad everyone's happy, but I just don't want to put myself through all that. I have lived 13 years without him. I don't want to have any contact with him ever again. I live on my own, so they can't do anything about it, really. They are basically saying that he wants to be absolved of his past, and by not wanting to talk to him and living in the past, I'm making an old man's life miserable, since his sins are following him. They keep saying he just wants to hear my voice. I still ain't budging because I feel like he gave away that right a long time ago. Recently, it was my dad's 70th birthday and they invited me. I said no, but apparently they made up some convoluted story that I was on a vacation abroad and sent a photo of me and my boyfriend with a text saying, "Happy 70th birthday, Dad. Love, Opie," to my dad. Apparently, he loved it and started brainstorming ideas where to meet with me to talk after I get back from my trip. My sister was present and texted me what had happened. I got so mad that I called my brother and told him to put me on speaker and told everyone at the birthday that I didn't send that message and don't want to have anything to do with my father, and then hung up. I got missed calls from my brother and later a text calling me heartless and asking me if I'm proud of myself for making a 70-year-old man cry on his birthday. He also called me vindictive and childish for living in the past. I said what my wishes were and that they didn't respect them. They made him cry, not me. But now all my extended relatives think I'm a huge witch, even though the rest of my siblings support me. So I don't know what to make out of all of this. I just want my wishes to be respected, and I don't think him getting therapy really can wipe away mistreating his family for over 2 decades. Not a-hole. This is on them. This is their screw up, not yours. 100%. They think OP is cruel. They're the ones demanding a victim play nice to their abuser and getting the old man's hopes up in some sort of sick, weird attempt to manipulate and guilt the victim into it when they set clear boundaries. Actions have consequences. If this man is truly holding himself accountable for the harm he caused, he would not expect anything from OP. And we don't have a side. But if he actually respected OP's wishes and was willing to respect her space, and these people got his hopes up anyway, holy Christ, that's so awful. Honestly, sounds as if OP not speaking to him is an uncomfortable reminder of the past for them. Can't think of any other reason for them to be hounding you like this. Well, OP isn't responsible for their feelings about their relationship with him. One of the big things that helped me make peace with my dad is that when I took him to therapy and said everything I needed to say, he just accepted it was his fault and said he was sorry. I had been so scared that he would get defensive because the harm had occurred years ago, or because he'd got in therapy and changed, but he never invalidated any of my feelings. I think that showed me that he really had changed, and that he truly did want to work things out and move on. Had he put up a wall or tried to direct the conversation, I might not be talking to him anymore today. Hey, you had to live through his PTSD. Now they can live with yours. Seriously, a parent's mental illness can have devastating effects on the minds of children. I hope you're in therapy. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my daughter to my wedding? I, 47, have been low contact with my daughter Noelle for 3 years at this point. I went low contact with her. There is a lot that happens. But my last straw was when she was 23, she stole my credit card and racked up close to $4,000. There was a lot more to it, but that was my last straw. Anyways, I'm getting married. I've been with him for 10 years and we are doing a very small gathering with my 2 other kids, his kids, and my grandma. So a total of 8 people. Noelle is better now, got her life together, and we are talking more often. But I didn't invite her. I don't trust her not to pull a stunt at the wedding. It got back to her and she got angry. Long arguments on both sides, and in the end, she called me an ass. My kids are divided on this issue, so I want an outside opinion. Thank you for everyone's comments. I think I'm fine if this ends my relationship with her. If she wants to cut contact since I'm not healed enough or trust her enough after all she did, then it's on her. It's been 3 years of low contact, and my life has been better. I don't think no contact would change any of that. Now for the top comments. Has she apologized or made amends or done anything that acknowledges how much trouble she caused? Or is it more like she slid back into your life with, "Hey, I'm better now"? It's more sliding back and going, "I'm better now" for me. If I try to bring up the past, it's a lot of changing the subject. I know she apologized to her sister, but it didn't end well. Did she steal her sister's credit card too? Basically try to steal her boyfriend. She set her sister up on multiple blind dates, harassed her, sent explicit texts to her boyfriend. When that didn't work, she went over to her boyfriend's house, and the cops were called on her when he turned her down and she wouldn't leave. He broke up with my other daughter since he didn't want to deal with Noelle. Not a-hole. She broke your trust and has to work to rebuild your trust before you can fully invite her back into your life. Reading Opie's comments, her daughter has a lot to make up for to the whole family. She stole and sold grandma's jewelry given to grandma from her dead husband. Everyone should read the comments. She did some crafty stuff. No a-holes here, at least not now. Do understand though that not inviting her to your wedding will be taken as a decision not to have a relationship with her. That's a decision you're free to make, but you can't expect her not to be hurt and angry about it. Opie's comment history indicates that daughter has bad blood with all but one person who will be in attendance, and has a history of trying to start fights. I can understand why you wouldn't want to risk it on your wedding day. Not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for agreeing to take my niece on holiday but not her stepsister? This concerns my daughter Maddie, my brother Jason's daughter Bella, and his wife Tracy's daughter Sarah. All 3 girls are 11 and go to the same school. Bella and Maddie have always been close. So close that our family jokingly calls them the twins. They do the same extracurriculars at school and often have sleepovers, etc. I wasn't really surprised that when I picked the 2 girls up a few days ago, Maddie asked if we could have Bella come traveling with us for the summer. We always go away for pretty much the whole summer, and this year will be to 3 countries in continental Europe. I had no problem with Bella coming along, so said I would talk to Jason about it. We agreed that Bella could come. Jason and his ex would cover the cost of her flights, a subsidized contribution to accommodation, and give her a credit card for any expenses. Obviously, I will pay for most things, but this is for souvenirs or emergencies. The girls are thrilled. Over the weekend, I got a call from Tracy who is upset that I didn't invite Sarah on the trip. She said it was cruel of me to not offer her to take Sarah as well, since I know she has trouble socially at school as well as trouble getting along with Bella. She said me not inviting Sarah on the trip showed that we didn't think of her as family. Tracy said Sarah's devastated over this. I explained that I didn't invite anyone on this trip. Maddie did. To me, her inviting Bella is like her inviting a friend. It's not a family trip. The girls are just also friends. Jason is now getting pressure from Tracy not to let Bella go on the trip if Sarah isn't going. And he says he does see the point about it being unfair and exclusionary. His ex is now arguing, saying Bella should go anyway. And I agree. I think not allowing Bella to go because of Sarah is going to cause more problems between them. Jason asked if I would consider bringing Sarah on the trip as well, and I said no. This is my holiday too, and I don't want to spend it refereeing bickering between girls who are forced to spend time together. I also don't want to be footing the bill for Sarah's trip, as Tracy has a long history of not giving Sarah a reasonable amount of money to do things, and expecting whoever is around to just make up the difference. I would feel bad if Bella doesn't get to come because of this, but I don't think it's fair to anyone to take Sarah on this trip. Not the a-hole. My family is structured similarly to yours, and I understand your justifications 100%. Even if the verdict makes us both exclusionary a-holes, know that I feel your pain. Agreed, and honestly, why not do something with Sarah themselves, as in Tracy and Jason? Forcing Bella to skip the trip will just throw gasoline on the fire of the issues between Sarah and Bella. Yes, have them do the messy work of parenting a disappointed kid, and maybe help her learn some things. Tracy's doing well at ensuring the girls get along even less well. Does she think her daughter will have a good time playing third wheel to 2 girls who don't want her there? It is not Bella's job to make up for her stepsister's social awkwardness. As her mom, Tracy should be encouraging her in activities she enjoys and finding friends that way, not a-hole. I'm curious what Tracy would do if it was a non-related close friend asking Bella to accompany their family on a European vacation, provided they know and trust the family well. Would she also try to insist this family, who essentially has no real relationship with Sarah, bring her on their months-long trip? Or deprive her stepdaughter from a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the sake of fairness? Not a-hole. You nailed it with "our family jokingly calls them the twins." Sorry, Tracy. Their relationship was established deep long ago, and you being the way you are does not help.